My name is Nina Layton, and I've been working at Vantage Creative Solutions for 3 years as a campaign strategist. It's not the flashiest title, but I've been a consistent performer, always early to meetings, thorough in my reports, and known for saving more than a few projects from disaster with a well-timed insight. I wasn't the loudest voice in the room, but I liked it that way. My work spoke for itself. Or at least, it used to. It started with a silence I couldn't quite explain. Usually, our team's group chat was a stream of chatter, from memes and coffee complaints to urgent client changes and brainstorming sessions. But for an entire week, my phone stayed oddly quiet. I checked the app, restarted it, checked the Wi-Fi. Still nothing. That Friday morning, I showed up to a client status meeting and found out that 3 major presentation slides had been updated without my knowledge. Worse, they had used the old data I had flagged last month as inaccurate. My name was still on the deck. My ideas, distorted. After the meeting, I pulled James aside. He was the only one on the team who hadn't seemed smug during the presentation. "Hey, weird question, is there another group chat now?" He blinked. "You didn't know?" I tilted my head. "Didn't know what?" James scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "Erica made a new group chat last week. Said it would make communication easier and more focused. Thought you were in it." "Wait, she didn't add you?" "No. She didn't." He looked genuinely uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I thought you were looped in. I didn't mean to leave you out or anything." I gave a small, tight smile and walked away. Inside, though, I was furious. It wasn't just about being left out of a group chat. It was about being excluded from the conversation. Deliberately. I could see it clearly now, the rushed updates, the vague instructions in emails, the way my suggestions were suddenly being overridden or reworded by others. It wasn't an accident. It was strategic. Erica didn't want a voice that asked questions. She wanted a team that nodded. I spent that weekend thinking. I reread the last 2 weeks of emails. I took notes. I pulled up every report I'd submitted, every change that had been made to it after the fact. I wasn't going to whine to HR or beg to be added back. No. That's not me. Instead, I prepared. Monday morning, I walked into the office calm, early as usual, coffee in hand, and opened a fresh new draft in my inbox. I responded to an email chain about a client rebrand, one where Erica had carelessly approved a tagline that had already been used by another brand last year. I pointed this out gently, with links. And this time I didn't just reply to the team. I CC'd Laura Hill, our department head. A woman known for her sharp mind, zero tolerance for internal politics, and her habit of reading every email she was copied on, no matter how minor. They didn't want me in the group chat? Fine. But they were about to remember why I was someone they couldn't afford to ignore. Every email after that had Laura on it. Every error I spotted, every vague instruction I received, every question I had to clarify, all of it was shared, professionally and politely, with full visibility. I wasn't loud. I wasn't rude. But I was meticulous. Every CC was a mirror to their sloppiness. And I could tell, the panic had started to set in. By the middle of the week, the shift in tone was undeniable. I noticed it first in Erica's emails. Her usual clipped, borderline passive-aggressive phrasing was suddenly padded with polite words like "just to clarify, thanks for your feedback, and appreciate the insight." She even addressed me by name, something she hadn't done in weeks. It was almost comical. But the real giveaway was how fast she responded. I'd send an email, CC Laura, and Erica would hit reply all within minutes, sometimes seconds. Scrambling to explain a choice she'd made, or backpedal on something I'd challenged. I hadn't said anything to Laura directly. Not once. I simply let the documentation speak for itself. But in our office, where perception is everything, the fact that the department head was suddenly in the loop, it shifted the entire dynamic. I got curious and asked IT discreetly if they could tell me when I'd been removed from the group chat. One of the junior techs, who owed me a favor after I helped rework his client proposal last quarter, gave me the date. 2 days before the presentation with the outdated data. The timing wasn't random, it was strategic. They'd cut me out to push through a flawed idea without pushback. And now I was pushing back, 1 cc at a time. It didn't take long for others to start noticing. James began forwarding me screenshots from the group chat, yes, the one I was no longer in, because people were panicking. One message from Erica read. Can someone tell Nina to stop CCing Laura on everything? This is getting out of hand. And someone, bless their brave soul, replied. Maybe if we hadn't removed her from the chat and ignored her edits, she wouldn't need to. Apparently, that reply didn't go over well. James told me the group went silent for hours after that. I smiled when I read the message. It was nice to know at least someone had a conscience. Meanwhile, I kept doing my job. Efficiently. Thoroughly. Publicly. When a miscalculation in the advertising spend went unnoticed by Erica, I flagged it and CC'd not only Laura but also finance. When the design team was working off an outdated brief because Erica failed to distribute the updated version, I attached the original, the update, and made the timeline clear, all with Laura looped in. And Laura? She never replied. But I knew she was watching. One morning, I arrived at work to find a sticky note on my desk from her assistant. Laura would like to have a quick chat later this afternoon, if you're available. My heart jumped. I ran through a dozen scenarios in my mind. Was I overstepping? Was she annoyed by the email volume? Was this going to backfire? I walked into her office at 2 p.m. sharp. She closed the door behind me. Nina, she said, motioning to the chair across from her desk. I've been watching your work very closely these past few weeks. I sat down, nervous but steady. I figured you might be. I just wanted to say, thank you. For your professionalism. For your attention to detail. And for not raising this issue with HR before giving the team a chance to correct itself. I blinked. You know about the chat? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Let's just say things have a way of making themselves visible when people think they're being discreet. She leaned back in her chair. I'm giving you lead on the next major client proposal. I want your name on the pitch. You'll be presenting. You'll also get full access to the analytics tools going forward, bypassing team lead filters. I was stunned. Thank you, Laura. That means a lot. She nodded once. Just keep doing what you're doing. You've shown me exactly who I can trust when the spotlight isn't on them. As I walked out of her office, the team glanced up from their desks. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. They saw the closed door. They saw the conversation they weren't part of. And suddenly, the silence was on their side of the chat. After my meeting with Laura, something fundamental in the office changed, not just for me, but for everyone. For starters, the atmosphere around my desk shifted from dismissive to cautious. People who had barely acknowledged me 2 weeks ago were now overly polite. I'd hear things like, just looping you in, Nina, or let us know if you want to take lead on this section. Even Erica, I see, always in control Erica, had started calling me Nina again instead of her usual vague, can someone check this? It was small stuff, but I noticed it. Like hyenas suddenly realizing the lion they'd been circling might not be alone after all. And then the kicker came, the big project Laura had handed me. It wasn't just some token gesture. It was the client, Silverhawk Apparel, our firm's flashiest, most profitable account. The last time we pitched to them, Erica had nearly tripped over herself trying to impress the client rep. That was her crown jewel. Now it was mine. I got the official handover email a few days later. Laura made sure the whole team was CC'd, including the creative director, the data analysts, and even Erica herself. The message was simple. Nina will be leading the Silverhawk fall campaign. Please direct all related files, concepts, and timelines to her directly. She has full authority on final creative direction and budget recommendations." I stared at the screen for a moment, stunned. They had thrown me out of a group chat, and now I was leading $1 million account. Let's just say the next all-team Zoom was interesting. Erica's expression didn't flinch, but her voice had that rigid cheerfulness people use when they're barely suppressing rage. "Of course, Nina. Let us know how we can support." "I will," I replied smoothly. "And thank you, I'll be revisiting some of the decisions made on the spring concept. There are a few inconsistencies I'd like to address." I didn't even need to look at her face to know it landed. But I didn't stop there. Since I now had access to the internal campaign analytics directly, I went back through the data from the last 2 quarters. What I found was a pattern: small budget overruns, misreported click-through rates, inconsistencies in branding tone. None of it was catastrophic, but when you're dealing with a client like Silverhawk, any sloppiness is unacceptable. I put together a report. Clean. Direct. Well-sourced. Then I emailed it to the team and CC'd Laura. The subject line? Initial observations: Silverhawk Fall Campaign Prep. Within 20 minutes, Laura replied. "Excellent catch. Let's set a meeting next week to go over this. Nina, please bring any additional concerns to the table. We'll want a clean slate before this campaign launches." Now the entire team knew, I wasn't just in the spotlight. I owned it. And the ironic part? I still wasn't added back to their group chat. But I didn't need it anymore. Their little power circle had collapsed in on itself. What was once a place to gossip and exclude had become a liability, because now, everything they whispered was eventually exposed in public email chains, where I had the boss copied and the data to back me up. It wasn't just revenge. It was vindication. By the end of that week, the group chat was in shambles. James, who had become something of an unofficial mole, though he'd never call himself that, pulled me aside one afternoon and muttered, "They're panicking, you know. Erica's been trying to shift blame for the budget overruns to other people. She even tried pinning some of it on design." I raised an eyebrow. Design? They weren't even looped in until halfway through. "Exactly," James whispered. "But she's desperate. Ever since Laura started responding to your emails directly, everyone in that chat knows the power dynamic has shifted. That shift was now visibly affecting workflow. Suddenly, decisions were no longer made behind closed doors or inside private threads. Erica tried to initiate tasks through vague email chains again, but people ignored them until I followed up. Approvals were bottlenecked unless I gave the green light. Even interns began quietly asking me to review their contributions before forwarding them up the chain. I hadn't asked for this authority. But I wasn't about to let it slip through my fingers either. Then came the meeting. Monday morning, 9:30 a.m., Laura scheduled a department-wide sync. The invite was simple: restructure discussion, all team members required. Erica walked into the conference room stiff as stone, trying to hold on to whatever dignity she thought she still had. I came in 5 minutes early. My presentation deck was already loaded. Laura opened the meeting with her usual calm but commanding tone. "We're making some structural changes today. Based on recent performance, communication audits, and project outcomes." Every head in the room turned. Laura continued, "It's become clear that certain workflows, including unofficial communications, have undermined transparency and efficiency." Erica shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "And unfortunately," Laura said, turning a page on her clipboard, "some of those choices have created an environment of exclusion, misinformation, and diminished accountability." Silence. She didn't need to say names. But then she did. Effective immediately, Nina will be assuming the role of senior campaign strategist. She will also be leading cross-team integration on all major accounts through Q4. Erica, Laura turned to her, voice neutral, "You will transition into a supporting role, focusing on documentation and back-end data compilation." Erica's jaw tightened, but she nodded mechanically. James looked down at his notepad, probably hiding a smirk. The meeting wrapped 10 minutes later. No applause, no questions. Just quiet awe, and a low buzz of whispers as people filed out. Later that afternoon, I received an email from Erica. Just one line. Congratulations. I hope it was worth it. I stared at the screen for a moment, then replied. Thank you. It was. And that was that. But the final nail in the coffin? Came later that week. James forwarded me a screenshot. The group chat was deleted. Wiped. No ceremony. No explanation. Just gone. They couldn't maintain the charade anymore. It had become toxic, exposed, and frankly, useless. In trying to silence me, they'd handed me more power than I ever asked for. They removed me from a group chat. And I rewrote the entire conversation. A month after the restructure, the office felt different. Quieter. Sharper. More professional. Gone were the passive-aggressive side glances and whispered conversations by the coffee machine. People started copying more team members in their emails, keeping records clean, asking for feedback openly. Even casual Slack chats became more respectful, measured. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was awareness. A newfound understanding that exclusion, games, and gossip could cost you more than just someone's trust, it could cost you your credibility. And for me, things had changed more than just externally. I wasn't just Nina the campaign strategist anymore. I was the one people came to for decisions. For judgment calls. For advice. And yes. For accountability. I didn't go drunk with power. That was never my goal. But I did start speaking up more in meetings, mentoring the newer staff, and volunteering for the interdepartmental review boards Laura had started. I stopped downplaying my insights. I stopped holding back to make other people comfortable. And Laura noticed. She called me into her office 2 weeks after the campaign launch for Silverhawk, which, by the way, exceeded expectations. Our client renewed for 2 more quarters. She didn't sugarcoat it. You've earned your place, Nina, she said, hands folded over her laptop. Not because of what happened. But because of how you handled it. I nodded, grateful. I just did what I thought was right. And that's what we need more of around here. She paused for a second. I'm recommending you for a leadership track. If you want it. I couldn't respond right away. I just smiled, slowly. And for once, I let myself feel it. The full weight of what I had climbed through. From silent meetings and invisible decisions, to this. A seat at the table, one I carved out myself. Later that evening, I stayed late to finish a brief. The office had emptied out, the humming of printers and distant clicks reduced to a quiet hum. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the monitor. I thought about the group chat. About the people who had once decided that I wasn't worth including. And then I opened a new draft, a simple guide for interns on effective communication and inclusive collaboration. Because if this company was going to change, I wanted it to start with me. To rewrite the culture. One CC at a time.